Well, Sam, it's really funny, and we didn't even plan this, but ironically enough, I remember the first time I met Matrox was about 15 years ago at a show called NAB, which is the National Association of Broadcasters. I remember very vividly how the integrators at NAB said, hey, we are broadcast integrators, we are not AV integrators.
I know.
And now many of those folks are exhibitors here at this show, and to talk about how the world has totally changed and how broadcast and AV in many cases are now one and the same is our very own Sam Minish. Sam, thanks so much for coming on.
Of course, it's great to be here. I mean, the show's buzzing, we're having a great time. Obviously, we've been talking about this convergence quite a bit. It was a huge topic at ISE, it's a huge topic at InfoComm. But what's really interesting and what we're seeing is it's not just talk, right? The convergence is happening. Often you see that with the money. So you've got the entire Pro AV industry. It's a massive, massive industry. You've got the entire broadcast media tech kind of side of things. And so right in the middle of that, there's this beautiful Venn diagram that really highlights the fact that the revenue and the business applications are growing very quickly in this space. So the convergence is happening. It's not just a hot topic anymore.
Sam, it's funny being here, seeing brands like Ross Video, Matrox, folks like Shure, who you'll hear from here in just a second. Folks who lived in that broadcast world for a long time and who really jumped across the barrier to say, you know what, we're unapologetically going to have conversations in this industry, because not only is it a great business opportunity, but there's so much demand from a usability and delivery standpoint. And what's so cool about our, I would say maybe a world of corporate video, I don't know, maybe that's a better way to define it, is that the point of entry now is so much lower than it used to be.
Yes, very much so. I mean, it used to be you needed an entire massive, TV level studio setup to get started. And now user entry points are so much more accessible, and therefore user demand for higher quality is going up. And the products that are out in the world are responding. They say that when you're starting to create content, you need some really simple stuff. Sound is a big one, so thank you again to our partners at Shure. Sound is huge. If people can't hear you, it doesn't matter. The next thing you like to add is lighting, right? You can really lose an audience if nobody can see your eyes and nobody can see your facial expressions and hear what you're saying. There's so many ways that a company can get started, right, from your very standard, kind of lights on sticks. You can work with, our partners like at ICANN. They're bringing PoEs that are more accessible than ever. You don't require as much highly specialized labor, and it's not this massive project anymore. Heck, we built an entire multi-set studio on a trade show floor in 2 days. So these are the kinds of things that any brand can do. And they should demand their own quality. I mean, these are things that users are expecting at this point, right? It used to be 5 years ago, pre-COVID. You knew that the audio was going to go in and out a little bit. You knew that it was weird. You knew that, if you were talking to somebody on your laptop, it wasn't going to be great. Now, with a simple mic, lights setup, you can have a great conversation really, really easily. Actually, we were talking earlier about kind of the wave of DSLR and how that opened up so many doors.
It's interesting you bring up DSLRs. That disrupted the filmmaking industry quite a bit, but it also opened the door for a lot of filmmakers to find their way in the industry.
Correct.
And the transition really reminds me a lot of, look, now that we've lowered some of the price points, we've lowered the barrier to entry for so many folks, we're finding now that people are coming into the industry with an understanding of lighting, rule of thirds, basic composition, exposure,
Correct.
all of those things which pre-2010 wasn't really something that folks were familiar with. Now they have that expertise, they're used to pulling their phones out, all those things, and they want to take that into their corporate job or places like that, which is where a lot of folks find corporate AV corporate broadcast for the first time.
100%, and it's becoming so much more accessible, right? I mean, there is always going to be a need, and there should be a need for exceptionally high quality, high touch broadcast setups, right? Where you're really getting involved and it's an entire project that's taking you a long time and you're building out the proper studio. You're talking, your mega corporate town halls and shareholder meetings where people are distributed around the world, and all of a sudden you can finally connect really easily at that high quality. You've got folks like AWS that are suddenly making it really accessible. You don't have to have on-prem. You can have on-prem. That's a really good solution for a lot of different things. But there's also a ton of solutions where you don't necessarily have to have the space. We, in fact, at our own corporate headquarters, converted a conference room into an entire working studio, and we use that to create town halls and messages. We're creating education content there, and it's all of a sudden, for an association, we can actually create exceptionally high quality content, which is really, really fun.
Well, Sam, look, it's been fun to be part of the journey over here at Avixa TV. I remember you and I had a conversation all the way in the press room, I think 5 or 6 years ago, talking about sort of the early beginnings, and I've got to give you a lot of credit for what's happened here, the investment, the size, the scope, the scale, and I can't let you respond to that because you're going to deny a lot of it. But someone else who also is very, very much important to the success of Avixa TV is a company called Shure, who joins us now at the desk.